channels where we're going to be playing some role playing games. We're going to start with some games of partners. So, this is going to be our session zero of partners. We've got a bit of noise in the background there, but we'll make do. I am Steve D. I'm the designer of partners, and with me we have Peter Blake and Ryan George, who are going to be playing along with us. The way we're probably going to do this is I'm going to be working as a rules reader and adjudicator and maybe playing some of the smaller characters. And these two guys are going to be playing our partners, our wild card and our straight shooter. So Partners is a game that we published in 2021. It is a two-player specific role-playing game with a very unique mystery-solving style to it, where not the GM and not the players know who did it, only the cards know, and you have to figure out the explanation behind all of that. It was designed because I don't think there's enough good murder mystery RPGs out there, really. So we're going to be going through the rules. So this will act as an actual play, how to play as well. You can get partners on our website, tinstargames.com. You can order hard copies or digital copies. Partners, yes. To play partners, you need something to write on and with. We've got some Google Docs set up. And a regular pack of cards without jokers, and a random word generator of some sort, which we've got as a website. We can pull that up. You can play with more than two players. I'm just going to go through the book basically and talk about all the things in the book bit by bit. So I've got the book right here in front of me. I'm now on page 7. Did we just lose somebody? No? Yes? Oh.
He shared the document.
Peter shared the document. Now that could be... we'll have to make sure that people aren't looking at it. So the way the game works is the first thing we have to do is... this is designed to... Hello, Finn. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Partners is a game of detective fiction, mystery fiction, and particularly since it's for two players, it focuses on a very common television dynamic where there is a straight shooter, although it's not just television, it goes all the way back to Sherlock Holmes. One player is the straight shooter, they're the player who cares a bit more. Maybe they care too much. Maybe they're a bit more straight-laced. Maybe they follow the rules. And maybe they have a code. Maybe they're also a little bit boring. Whatever the reason, they're the straight shooter. And then there's someone that they've been teamed up with, the wild card, who is a good-looking rebel who plays by their own rules. There's someone who takes things in their own way, in their own different direction. You can have, though, sometimes the wild card can be someone who is very following of the rules. House is not a good example of that, but he was obviously a wild card to Wilson. I'm trying to think of sometimes every now and then. Well, I mean, there's that show, The Good Cop, where the reason that the main character is weird is that he's actually good at his job and doesn't break the rules, which I always thought was a pretty honest take about police work. But he's actually really the straight shooter in that show because he's chasing around his dad, who was a very, very bent cop. So we have with us, as I said, Peter and Ryan, and then we're having a little bit of discussion about who wants to be the straight shooter and who wants to do the wild card in this pair.
Yeah, because obviously it's kind of the key choice in partners is the side. You lean one way or the other, and I have a mild proclivity for wild carding things every now and again.
We could also decide randomly. That's always a possibility.
I think the energy Ryan's been bringing backstage means he is totally suited to being a wild card, and I'm very happy to be a straight shooter for this.
Excellent. All right. So the way that one of my favorite parts about about partners Too many role-playing games. My favorite part about Partners is that we don't know exactly what kind of show we're going to make because we make it separately and then we bring it back together. So what I'm going to get our two participants to do now is separately go away and answer a question, 3 questions. The questions are, before I was a detective, I was something. And you might still be that thing, but it's your background, the thing that sort of makes you more than just a detective. Then they will be defined why they are, how you can tell that they're the straight shooter or the wild card. It doesn't, not about an internal thing, because this is about creating a televised show sort of idea. So you have to have a thing that shows you a mark, a signal that shows off your nature. And then deep down, why you respect your partner. What is the thing about them that you respect? And that's based on not knowing who they are yet. But it's actually a reflection of you. Like, what is the thing that you don't do or can't do or wish you could do? So I'm going to get you guys to sort of mute your mics while you write that down, or just go away and not listen or something, and tell me when you're ready to reveal your answers. And I'll give you some thinking music. No, I won't. Partners is available, as I say, on our tinstargames.com website. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll get you guys to just take a few minutes to write down your answers, and then we'll bring you back together, and we'll find out more about this show that we're making. And that can always be a lot of fun because we have no idea, and you only have half the piece. And of course, that is a very thematic part of this game rules, because the game really is about the fact that the two partners can't operate without each other. I'll get you guys to post in chat when you're ready, and we'll bring you back in. Or you can shout it out if you want. If you'd like to see people play Relics, you can. There are a few videos on our YouTube channel. And we were done. The lovely folks at Penny for a Tale ran a lovely game of it. I have run Relics in the past. Well, we also did a podcast. We had like 8 episodes, but it was hard to like. One of the reasons my games got shorter and shorter is I got harder and harder. It was just more and more exhausting for me to GM them. And I was like, well, you can't promote your game if you're not GMing them. And I'm like, that's for the help to do. Anyway, Peter's ready. That's good. And I've lost. There we go. There's Restream. So we're just waiting for Ryan. Yep, I've got confirmation that we are live on YouTube. Tinstar Games is the name of our channel, and you can find all our stuff there. And yeah, if you're trying to find us on the Discord, you won't actually be able to hear us there because we shut all that down. But we are also having a Discord. Tinstar Games is also a Discord, and we love to answer your questions about the games there. And Ryan is writing his answers into the document.
Well, I mean, like, I got to request edit access, and then I do that.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm gonna read out Peter's answers. Are you finished, or you definitely got your answers set? Not going to change them? Actually, I'll request edit access as well. That's a nice little bit of dead air. Let's fill that in, shall we? Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to make things work. We will, of course, be hopefully showing these things off. on our YouTube and our Twitch. If you follow us on Twitch, you can see us there. We don't
Okay, you should be able to edit now.
Hey, okay, cool. If you scroll down, you should be able to hide Peter's answers too, so you won't see them.
Nah, maybe I gotta refresh it. Guys, here we go.
Okay. I don't have edit access.
I click that too. Let me click it again.
Amazing technology again, and thank you all for persevering through this amazing. Okay, this is really good answers. One of the reasons we decided to do this is, and I don't actually know that many people play this game. We are selling it. It is very quickly becoming our best seller. It sells really well. But I've only run it a couple of times, and usually on my own. Like most of the testing I did with it was just, can I generate an episode, using these cards? Is it interesting? Over and over again. So making sure the tables work. I think it's a very weird game. So I'm always surprised when people play it, which is great. Because it's not like a traditional RPG. And it requires a bit of work. Okay, we've got our answers, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't have our show just yet, because what we have to do once we have our pieces is have to figure out how the show actually works. So the straight shooter is written down. Before I was a detective, I was a documentary filmmaker. You can tell that they're the straight shooter because they always make sure of their facts are correct, which is, makes sense for a documentary filmmaker. Deep down, they respect the wild card because the wild card never loses their sense of humor and hope. The wild card, before they were a detective, they were a gambling addict who lost everything. And you can tell that the wild card can always take the riskiest, showiest path to solve the case. Respects the straight shooter because their knowledge and confidence inspires me to do better. So we have two very strong characters here already. We have someone who's dedicated to making sure of the facts, making sure of everything. Very important part of being a documentary filmmaker. You can't be caught, manipulating things, guessing things, getting things wrong. Meanwhile, we've got someone who takes every chance, takes every risk, and has it backfired on, has it had it backfire. Now, as I say, we don't have a show yet necessarily, because the question is, what kind of show would these two characters make? And that doesn't have to be they both ended up in the police force. What it could be is that for whatever reason, they choose to investigate and solve murders. Now, that could be the documentary filmmaker is someone who goes and solves cold cases, does documentaries of murder cases and tries to figure out who killed who. And along the way, he did a story on some Vegas people or something, on some gamblers. What do we think, guys? Do we want to be cops or not?
I think there's something interesting. You've got a question further down about how is justice served.
Yep.
And I think justice may be served by having the truth be on record.
That's nice. Yep.
Yeah, because I think that's actually fine. Like the idea of they're not police, they're investigators who are just motivated by a general sense of let's make the world a better place, rather than it's purely duty. There's always that base motivation of just the only reason we do this is to help, or to make ourselves famous, or to get the truth out there. Whatever the individual motivations might be, it's coming from a personal place, not anything put on them.
Yep, that's good. So it's as we develop our characters, we also develop what we call the show Bible. And one of the things that you determine early on in your show Bible is, where do the hooks come from? And what we were just talking about there is that they're not something that are put upon us. So if the choices for your episode hooks are we're assigned cases. Someone goes, here's your case, deal with it. Then there's clients come in and hire you. The third one, though, sounds what we were talking about. Something bad happened, and you are called to investigate it. That seems to be what we're talking about here, yeah?
Yeah, I mean that's the traditional, the great hero's journey, call to adventure, and I'm always down for a good old call to adventure.
So
I also think there's opportunities for that to come from both main characters.
Yep, absolutely.
I imagine the Wildcard's got some 12-step program to be able to have got back on track. So there's all sorts of bad luck stories.
Yeah.
Or from that end, and from the straight shooters end, there's a lot of opportunities to say, I think this would make a great piece. Let's go and have a look.
Fantastic. All right, so a big part of any show's format and part of choosing not to be cops is also figuring out how justice gets served. One of the great things about the new show Poker Face is for the first time in years, it's a show not about a cop. So she often figures out exactly who did it really early on in the episode and then has to figure out how she can do something about that because she often has no proof. Certainly nothing that will stand up in court. Now, sometimes if in Agatha Christie, of course, you can just stand in a drawing room and announce what happened, and that's enough. And we could even go with that. So the options that we have, again, for how justice is served, the guilty party is spooked. That's the easiest one, basically. That's where you simply just start to solve the mystery, figure out the right thing, and that person will eventually just go, well, yes, you caught me. And they attack them, or they run for it, or they give something away, and it's all very obvious. Here's what's really happened requires a bit more explaining every part of the detail and finding the key elements that fall into proof. And that's usually things like Monk. That's usually where Agatha Christie is, although sometimes the guilty party is spooked just because of something that Poirot is doing. Then we get things where you actually have to force them to confess or trick them into confessing, which you see a lot in Perry Mason. And then finally, the tides turn as you actually have to find them, track them down, find all the evidence, assemble a case, and maybe even put pressure on them from somewhere externally. Which is, where we often find Poker Face, usually in those last two. I think we're probably not the tides turn. I think we're somewhere probably in the middle. But what do you reckon? Is it just enough to sort of show the movie and just go, we've got everything now? And
I would like to ping pong between here's what really happened and self-implication required.
And I actually was
both of those are,
exactly
both of those suit the idea of capturing things on camera.
Yeah, because it's less so about capturing the person, it's capturing the evidence, because like regular people, we're not going and arresting someone and bringing them in. We're just bringing to light what they've done, and then it's that person's personality that dictates how they will respond to it.
Yep.
More so than our approach to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're getting some themes up already, which is really good. The camera is this sort of judge, or witness. The camera is the witness that can't be escaped. It's really
that's a nice 21st century theme, like reality TV. The idea is that the conceit is that what we are seeing is reality.
A lot of people will probably be eager to come to us and go, oh yes, of course we want to be on your fabulous thing. That'll prove that I'm innocent. And then we're like, well, maybe not. Now, do you guys want to keep going with the Bible, or would you like to make some secondary characters?
Can we do easy and difficult?
Yeah, absolutely.
Two sections.
Yeah, so
because that's sort of like the big flesh out.
Yep. Now again, we have a table. We have randomness. There's some that might pop out. So we have a list here of things. This is a very unlike this is one of the least mechanical parts of the game, but it's really good for helping you figure out how your characters operate, what kind of scenes you're going to do. So it decides what things that you're good at and what things that you're bad at or have difficulty doing. And it's often very easy to write shows where people are really, really good at things and forget that actually stops them from being interesting. Again, to bring back to Poker Face, she is perfect at understanding if someone is lying or not, and that's pretty much the only thing she can do. And that's why it's really interesting, because she's just got nothing else behind her. So do we want to draw randomly? I want to pick some out that we're good at. On the page 33, if you're reading at home, we have the list of 13 things.
How about we pick one each, and then we draw the third one randomly?
Sure. Interview people's pretty going to be high on the list, I'd say.
I think that's got to be my easy one.
Yeah, and I think if I'm looking, it's gonna have to be great leaps of logic. That let's look, this person's doing this kind of thing. Obviously, they're doing that. They wouldn't be doing that. I'm willing to bet they are. Winks to camera. Everybody laughs.
Nice. I think probably the third one is follow or find people, because that's what a camera is often doing, tracking along someone during their day, but also going, we found your long lost brother, or it could be context. It could be lots of context, but I think that's the main three we're probably going to have.
I think once we've got the episode hook, that's where the context come in. They don't necessarily come in through the story.
Yeah, there's and some very obvious ones that's going to be difficult for you to do. You're not going to be able to use force or imitation, or maybe you are. What sort of gambler are you? Are you the kind of mobster gambler who maybe you can rough people up now and then?
No, not the winning kind. No.
So use force might be a good one for your difficulties.
And I guess that also makes sense. Like, they're not police, so getting criminal records is probably well out of their reach. Not having access to that side of investigation.
Yeah, lots of blocking from the cops. So what we say in the rules is that you can have as many easy scenes as you like, but you can only have a certain number of difficult scenes, basically. I just want to remember what the rule is of how many. I think it's...
3 easy, 3 difficult actions, can't duplicate anything, and ones with an asterisk are used sparingly.
I think to use intimate truths is probably a good difficult one.
Yeah. The rule is you must have 3 scenes for every difficult action you do, basically. Yeah, that's good.
Because the camera doesn't look inside.
Yeah, that's right. You can only see the outside. And there we go. That's one of our themes we can say is the camera as an imperfect witness, as they often like to do in those anime titles. It's definitely an interesting theme to explore. Now, there is also a lot of these things have a ongoing arc. Poker Face Charlie is hunted. In The Mentalist, that he's hunting Red John. Do we have something like that, or is maybe that will come out maybe in the first episode?
I think we should let ourselves have a pilot.
Yep, that's a good idea.
I'm down for that.
We're probably not going to be on the run from the law or something, though. So we can sort of flag that.
Not if we're in a Western country.
Yeah. So then we have the mood, basically, in the sense of how gritty things are going to be, and how much natural justice that we deal out. So, are our enemies always wearing black hats, and is exposing them generally white-hatted? Is it are the wicked always punished, or do they occasionally get away from us? And how much do we bend or break the rules to get what we want? Does sometimes looking through the camera reflect back and make us wonder who we really are? Like so many films have talked about. Paul Schrader's films tend to be about this sort of thing. I think we're sort of in that sort of area, but we're probably not rough justice. We're not
No,
bad cops.
I think the thin detecting line is probably where we're at.
Yeah.
Simply because we've got us with the wild card. Sounds like they have a question about what is the world populated with?
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's kind of like the curse of being regular people who are going and deciding who's, you know, good and bad, is, well, you can't always be right, and it's kind of a you know, part of the show. Maybe that's, you know, part of where they realize that maybe that it's not always them in the right spot. It adds, you know, depth and value to the story.
Excellent. Yep. So I think we're probably not PG. We might be M-rated. Not that they really use that anymore. Oh, they still do.
No.
But what is, well, it's what sort of this section lets us sort of flag if we have sex and drugs and violence, and if we have particularly any lines and veils, which is a really important technology, really important mechanic about what we want to actually talk about, what we want to depict. So for those who don't know, a line is something that never happens in our show, never occurs, never, because it's just not something we want to talk about, whereas a veil is something that we talk about but we don't depict in any great detail. You know, for example, so if you look at something like Law and Order SVU, they are constantly talking about sex crimes, but they never show any nudity. They never show any actual sexual images or anything like that, or sexual violence. Everything sort of is always off screen because of the channel and the time that they're on. This is really, again, we can work this out after the pilot, and we can get a feel for it as we go on. We can also always, of course, at any time, renegotiate these things, because we might be like, oh, hang on, didn't think of that. I think we've got a good sense about what sort of show this is as well. It's probably, you know, a streaming show on Netflix or something. We have to think of a title.
I think you've got the intro voiceover. Is the camera a perfect witness?
Right,
as your opening line.
Now, are you a recovering gambling addict, or are you well, how much of an addict are you still? Are you 12-stepping your way free, or do you think you're still drawn back to the table?
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, certainly no longer at the absolute depths of it, but like not taking recovery as seriously as they probably should. So like won't go to a casino, but like
Yep.
if someone propositions a bet of functionally any kind, won't say
Right.
no, is
Yep.
easy to drag back in. So has to
So
wrestle with those inner demons.
Is this roughly where Holmes is in Elementary with his drug addiction?
Yeah, well, yeah, so it's like, that's actually a really good. Actually, I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
Right.
that whole idea was on the outside. Oh, definitely. Like I'm working really hard on the inside. Well, it's hard to work through, and the only thing that makes it easy to work through is not working through it. It's like, well, guess I'm not working through it today. Awkward.
Fantastic. Actually, that could even the name of the show could even be Imperfect Witness or something like that. We'll come back to Veils and Lines. What we might do is make some subordinate characters. The rest of the cast. So some of these may now, if we are moving to a new location every episode, then that might change some of our cast. Do we think that we're always in the same city, or are we moving around the US or around the world? That's the main issue we probably need to think about before we build the rest of the cast, because it can be a shifting cast. As long as there's always someone that is nice and good, then that touchstone can be anyone each episode.
I get, or like, you look at it, it's like, so it's a documentary filmmaker, and like, just suggestions, obviously, but it'd be like, do you go like find a city where there's like a high crime rate and a lot of things wrong, and you're there to investigate the city, or is it like research every morning, find what the next big story might be, and then go and hunt that down?
I think it's in the process of making the documentary, you find someone who's just a perfect microcosm of it, and then you get drawn into the personal story, and that's where the background stuff fades away and the case comes in.
So it feels like, it's a documentary about a place, and then the episodes are stories of people's in that place. So it would be
Maybe that's something
location.
to look at with the story arcs, because you could build up a set of things that are thematically one documentary.
Yeah, so overall the goal is to use episodes to tell a story about building a story.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of the long arc then. The plot arc is building a story about stories. Maybe that's sort of also you're hunting we can find out if you're hunting your big breakthrough or your next film, or maybe you're in a writer's block period. We can actually, to answer some of these questions, is just to start to think about who might be a good subordinate or superior, and maybe we can have ideas separately. So the rules say you can do this separately or otherwise, and you swap sheets. So technically, Ryan, you're going to be filling out the top half, and Peter the bottom half. If there's something that leaps out at you, write it down, and we'll see where we go. So once again, I can think of plenty of options, but I don't want to give too many ideas to you, because I want to see what you come up with, and that's always really fun. Peter has said expose might be a good title for the show. Yeah. Or maybe if I write it like that. I've got that whole meta title thing in my head. Right, while they're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, brainstorming some ideas about who the subordinate cast is, we'll talk a little about the supporting cast. Most formula-based mystery-solving police procedurals have very particular archetypes in them. And I annoy my partner while watching television by going, look, there's the superior, there's the subordinate. And they're not always there, but you can usually find most of them. So we have the subordinate. Their job is basically to be made fun of and to be at the bottom end of the totem pole. If you think of, I can't remember his name, but the detective who is below the chief of police in Monk is a great example.
The guy, and because I've forgotten the names of almost all the characters in it, but in NCIS, he started off as Proby.
Yeah,
and he
McGee.
was relentlessly McGee. That's him.
Yeah,
relentlessly mocked.
Yeah, McGee is the classic subordinate.
McGee's around for so long that he graduates.
Yeah. Just went on and on and on and on and on. There was a really good bit about 4 or 5 seasons in where it looked like Gibbs was going to leave and everyone was going to shift, and I was like, and then they didn't. We also have the superior, who's the opposite. Their job is to boss everybody around, always comment on law and order. Their job is to just come in about every 10 minutes. The superior comes in and goes, well, you haven't tried this yet, or maybe you should try that. So that's the superior's job is also, of course, to tell you to hand in your badge and your gun and get out of their office. So a very useful character for fiction. And it looks like Peter's written something, which is good. That is very good. That is really good. Then we have a touchstone character. The touchstone is a character that represents something that is outside the mystery world, and is something that reminds people of the everyday, but also of the good. This is important in television shows because if people don't see their lives reflected, they get bored. They want to see, domestic situations, or it's a good way to also to throw a curveball into things. And of course, the touchstone can get into danger. So the touchstone can be kidnapped and all those sort of things. Especially in the darker versions of the shows, there's often a ticking time bomb before the touchstone is just disappeared or harmed in some way. Sometimes, of course, that's how it begins. There's a character you could think of, Richard Kimball in The Fugitive, that his touchstone is really his dead wife, that he's constantly looking for the killer of. And finally, we have the oddball. The oddball is the character who is a little bit weird in their own way. They're often they add a little bit more comic relief. This is the Abby from NCIS character. She doesn't get bullied on her own, but she's a bit weird, a bit different. She's not in all the time. And this is also sometimes the sort of the funny uncle, the bartender. They add a little bit of spice. They add a little bit of flavor. So we've swapped our sheets, and I'm going to read out what we've got. So we now know our subordinate is a man called Cameron Carr, and
the various cars.
Sorry? I missed that. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can.
I heard something from Peter, and then he went quiet. So it looks like our subordinate is the person who processes all the footage. And sometimes he finds things that the main characters miss. So he's a careful man. He's our editor back in the van or the office. He's gathering, goes through all the footage we shoot, and does what we tell him, which is perfect for a subordinate. And we have a superior who appears to be in charge of the budget, and is therefore always putting pressure from above, saying you can't afford that, we can't fly you out there, which is a great way to, of course, to provide great conflict in our show, as well as solving writing problems. Yeah, we've lost Peter. That's okay. I'm sure he'll be back. This is technology. His internet died. Excellent. Fantastic. This is the
Hooray!
modern technology.
It's a good thing, technology has come as far as it has. Like,
That's
because
right.
just imagine there'll be a time we wouldn't know his internet cut out. We just
That's
would have to accept it that he was gone forever.
Yep. And then in the future, he could just send us a telegram.
I'll keep an eye out for carrier pigeons. Ooh,
Yep.
there he goes.
All right. I think
That's
he's
all right,
coming
'cause
back. We have so we've got a great superior and a great subordinate already. And yeah, excellent push and pull. So
slap these
swap back, and
this
we're doing
crap up.
a touchstone and an oddball.
We swap back. Ooh.
You can if you've got a really good idea, you can
Oh,
suggest
no.
it. Yeah.
No.
And
It's all good.
yeah. Technically, they're on particular sheets because usually the person playing the wild card will also play the superior and the oddball, because the superior and the oddball tend to have the strongest relationships, the most dramatic relationships with the straight shooter. The superior is always bearing down on the straight shooter, and the oddball is going, "Hey, I'm weirder than you." It's wacky. Meanwhile, the subordinate has a relationship with the wild card because the wild card has the most fun picking on him and tries to pull him out of who he is. And the touchstone actually has an interesting reaction with the wild card, because the touchstone is normally a key part of the straight shooter's life, but their relationship never changes. As I said, the perfect example is the fugitive, John Kimball's wife. Her character cannot change because she's dead. And Peter is back and joining us. Fantastic. And yeah, so Peter, if you want to, if I was saying you don't have to swap back if you've got a great idea for a touchstone or an oddball, but we've swapped our sheets in theory.
Okay.
So that means you are coming up with a touchstone.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do a
Yeah.
touchstone.
So another great example is Lucifer. I've forgotten the main character's daughter. Doesn't have much of a relationship with her mother. They're always the same. The mother worries, the daughter is fine. But Lucifer brings out a really interesting dynamic between the two of them by actually being more interested in her life in a different way. And of course, it brings out things in him because he's like, I'm a sleazy nightclub owner. I don't know how children work.
Yes, children are a little strange to Lucifer. Doesn't exist in his world.
Yeah. So I just looked at the clock, and this is about 40 minutes. So that's good. We're going to probably get a really good session 0 out of this, and then we can start next time by making our first episode. We know a lot about our show. Let's just have a look down as well. We've got some ideas about veils and lines. We've got a title. We're calling it Exposed at the moment, which is impossible to pronounce, but that might help. I might just call it Expose. We'll see. Since this is a radio medium, we'll call it Expose. That's easy, nice. We have a great cast coming together. We've got a sense of push and pull, which is a really key part of all drama and storytelling. Not just between the straight shooter and the wild card, but also the other characters. The documentary filmmaker can't do anything without his editor or the money that he gets from his financial person. That's just a natural push and pull. So Names as always can come last. We can always come back and fix the names. And that's actually something that's reflected in my latest game, the score, as well, that I was talking about the other day, that we almost didn't put name on the character sheet, and it often doesn't get filled out. And that's because if you watch most heist or caper films, the characters have a very casual identity. They exist as a collection of tropes and a collection of skills. And it's more about what they do and how they drive the plot than who they are. And there's an excellent video on Patrick H. Willems' great YouTube channel, which is all about making a film and appreciating film, where he was talking about this in the film Tenet, where the main character is literally called the protagonist in the script. That's the only name he's ever given in the film. And all he is a collection of skills and a collection of ideas. And yeah, the same is true often in mystery shows. You know, that these characters, you very rarely remember their names, but you do. That's true of the mystery of the suspects and the criminals. You remember who they are and what they do. Oh, we have an oddball who's our promoter. That's very good.
The classic endpoint for me is in Snow Crash, where the lead character is called hero protagonist.
Yep.
I mean, that's definitely not what's our subordinate. What's he do? Well, he's going to sit in the van processing all the film. So what do we call it? Well, he's camera on the car because he processes the camera on the car.
Nice.
I definitely didn't. I didn't think this exact same thing.
Yeah. Hey, look, if it's good enough for Charles Dickens and Shakespeare, right? We have someone who's very young as the touchstone, but I'm not quite sure who they are. Who they are, a relative perhaps, or an intern?
I think it's a relative, or it's the stereotype of the kid that follows you around and tries to be you. So I don't know, maybe it's someone from a local school.
Maybe he's a fan.
Some kind of immature Veronica Mars.
Yeah, I'm imagining him as someone who's like a huge documentary film nerd. And he's like, you know, running around going, you know, have you seen Blackfish? Like, did you make that one? No, Blackfish was really good. You should watch Blackfish.
I'm not quite sure. Is that a touchstone role though?
It could be. It's more. It's a bit comic relief, but it's very much not part of crime, right? So it's pulling you into that normal world, like film school. Making movies. Maybe it's even like making him think about his parents. Or like, you could be making proper movies. Maybe that's the other thing. He's like, you know, you could go the other way and be like, why don't you make, you know, dramatic movies? Why don't you go to Hollywood? We can figure that out. He could, and we might figure that out in the first episode. Someone young. That's good. Young youth is a classic touchstone factor because as a culture, we still put all our fears and all our sense of what matters into children.
And that sense of who is young has grown as well.
Yes, absolutely. Alrighty. So we have our cast forming up. We know how we get our cases. And we've got some idea of what our shows are like. Now, we could, in the last 10 minutes, just get a sense of what our first episode is going to be like, maybe get a sense of who they were and how they died. So we know, like, it's like an ad basically being set up. We can imagine who that might be. Yep. So let's, now we can do this I've got a pack of cards in front of me.
Excellent.
So I'm going to draw who our stiff is. And I've drawn the 8 of Hearts. That's someone who works in retail. They generally appear as male, if we're going for a reductive view of gender. And as a heart, they are successful or wealthy in their business. Then we need 2 more things. We need two random words and a way of death. Now, do you guys have a random word generator? If you type random word generator into your Google, you should find one. We're going to get a random word from each of you, and I'm going to get a cause of death, which is multiple bullet wounds. So we have a successful. Whoops, that's the wrong place to write. They were a successful retail worker. That might mean they were a manager or an owner. Female.
Okay. Well, my word is material.
My word is ideology.
Good lord, multiple gunshot wounds. Right. So materialistic ideology could be a factor. What if she was very rich? What if she ran a casino?
Ooh.
Maybe that's where we're starting. And yeah, we might go with that. Material ideology suggests they were a symbol, perhaps, of capitalism run amok.
Maybe it's that some of that a whole swag of chips are missing.
Yes, that sounds.
So we don't know whether it's classic to rule robbery in or out at a very early stage in crime drama.
Yeah,
but maybe I think that's an ambiguous one.
Yeah,
it's like money you can only spend at one place.
That's right.
That's right. Obviously, they'll have to come back at some stage to be worth anything. So it's how do we find out who it is before they get away with it?
Yeah, and that could be I can imagine like somehow the shot causes like chips to go everywhere. So there's that sense of suddenly people could grab them, but of course they can't really do anything with them, and like they can shut down the bank. But on the other hand, maybe you can put one in your pocket.
Maybe the straight shooter is there to do an interview, and the gambler's there because
it's a casino.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm you're obviously there for the free shrimp, but
and like accidentally maybe captures what might be some of it on camera, and so it's like not enough is there.
Yeah.
Who do we talk to? Who could see more? What's the edge we can get to? What's the story?
Do we have a preference for country here? Do we want to be American because that's where a lot of the juice is, or do we want
unfortunately, that's where I know most of my tropes from because I watch so much goddamn American TV.
And that doesn't bother me. Because like at the end of the day, if we go like with the idea of it's what's the kind of thing you'd present to Netflix and they go, yep, done. This is our procedural drama of the year. Well, it's going to be American. Let's be real.
All right, that's cool.
Let's make it. Yep. So it's the US. So I'm imagining, we just have this scene of someone. I've got that sort of slow motion fall thing where someone's just like, we hear the shots, bang, bang, bang. This person falls, and as they fall, they've actually got one of those big sort of junky briefcases full of chips. They hit the edge. Their head hits the roulette table, and the case hits something else, hits a bar stool, and chips fly everywhere.
And like the title is gonna pop up where there's like a single chip with blood on it spinning on the tiles behind it, and it's like fades to title.
Perfect. Fantastic.
And the spinning chip turns into the lens of the camera.
Oh. Yes. Oh, brilliant.
Excellent. All right.
Because now we have our like theme lead in is there's always going to be something that somehow turns into the lens of the camera, and then the theme rolls. Oh,
chills. Absolute chills. Amazing. All right. Well, that was a really good session, guys. Thank you so much for playing. We'll pick this up next week. And we'll find out who killed
Casino Lady.
Let's call her Sheila Star with 2 R's.
Ooh.
Um,
That's how you know she's rich. She can afford a
That's right.
second R.
yep. All right.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for playing, and hopefully, if anyone was watching this or watches this later, you'll enjoy it and leave some comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, because it helps you find us and us find you. And we'll see you next week.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, looking forward to it.
All right.
Have a great